Using defensive player position numbers to record outs. Whenever an out is made, we will use the position numbers for all the players that were involved in making the player the out. These numbers will be put in the score box of the player that was called out. So in the first example, if a ground ball is hit to the shortstop who throws the batter out at first base, you would record it as a dot for the ball fielded by the shortstop, and say that ball would have gone between 150 and 250 feet, so we'll do our X out here. The shortstop threw it through the first baseman for the out. The shortstop's number is 6, and he threw it to the first baseman whose number is 3. And it was for the first out of the inning. So instead of using the intermediate method of just making a G6, so saying there was a ground ball to the shortstop, and assume he made the play, you would just go ahead and say the out was made by the shortstop throwing it to the first baseman. Again, the G6 is perfectly fine. The 6-3 is just an added level of detail to give you a clearer picture of what happened on the play or the out. So in our second example, we'll start with a runner on first base. A ground ball is hit to the third baseman who throws to second base for the force out, and the batter is safe at first on the fielder's choice. So we would record it as so. The ball was fielded by the third baseman and was going to go between 150 and 250 feet. The base runner was forced out at second base for the first out of the inning, and the batter made it to first on the fielder's choice. Now, because we show how the out was made in the score box of the player that was called out, we're going to put a 5 in this box because the third baseman fielded the ball and threw it to the second baseman for the force out. So if we just opened a scorebook to see what happened in a game and we saw these two boxes, we would know that this player hit the ball to the third baseman and was safe at first on the fielder's choice. And this runner was out going from first to second by the third baseman throwing the ball to the second baseman for the first out of the inning. Recording double plays in this fashion. There's two different ways we can score a double play using this method. We will use the example of there being a runner on first base. A ball is hit to the shortstop who throws to second base for the force out, and the second baseman throws to first base to get the batter out to complete the double play. So one way to do it is we'll start with a runner on first, and the next batter hits a ground ball to the shortstop, and the runner on first will be forced out at second, and the batter will be thrown out at first for a double play. So there's our DP. Now, to depict how the outs were made, the shortstop fielded the ball, threw to the second baseman, and then completed the throw to the first baseman for the double play for out number 1 and out number 2. I find this the easier way of these two methods to score this without being too confusing. The next example is the exact same play, but we'll record it just a little bit differently. So we've got our runner at first. And our batter hits a ground ball to the shortstop. Our runner on first is out at second for the first out. And our batter, is out on the double play for the second out. Now, since we like to show how the out was made for that specific out, the first out was made by the shortstop throwing the ball to second base for out number 1. And out number 2 was actually made by the second baseman turning and throwing to first base for the second out, which completed our double play. These two things are saying the exact same thing. It's just sometimes when you look at these two, it may look like two separate plays were made at different times by having two different putouts made there versus just a 6-4-3 over here and seeing that there was a double play made. Now, as a side note, when using numbers to record the outs in an advanced method, you can still use your F and L plus the number of the player that makes the play to depict those two outs. So if it was a fly ball to left field, you could still say F7. You don't have to do 7 unassisted. And likewise with the line drive, you could just say L5 for a line drive to the third baseman versus 5 unassisted. Oftentimes the unassisted mark is indicative of there being a ground ball somewhere. And it can be confusing if you just say 7, the left fielder made an unassisted out. It would be a little confusing as to what the heck happened. So I usually stick with still using the F's and the L's for our outs and going strictly with number to number when it's a ground ball out or a force out or something of that nature. Finally, there can be some specific special events or plays that take place that you really can't mark in a scorebook or a score box on what happened. Some examples of these might be long throws from the outfield to home, or fantastic diving plays by an outfielder or an infielder, or maybe really long runs made by an outfielder to catch a fly ball. Since some of these types of defensive plays can correspond with some of the ratings questions, when they happen, you might just make a specific little short note at the bottom of the inning of that score page and just say, center fielder long throw home, or shortstop diving catch of a line drive. That way, when you go back to look at a scorebook and you see an L6, and at the bottom of that inning it says shortstop dive play, you'll know that that out was actually a spectacular out and may impact ratings questions that that player has defensively. So here ends the advanced scorekeeping section of the tutorial.